You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you are with us on this fine Monday morning here in Greater Sudbury. If you are from Sudbury and you're joining us, that's great. We're going to be talking about many things to do with the city and more. And if you're not from Sudbury and you're joining us from abroad, welcome as well. And hopefully we have some subject matter that will appeal to you as well as we talk about stories from around the world as well that affect everyone, including us in Sudbury. So this is a chance for us to share our views on the news, which is in Sudbury and in a more broader sense. So thanks for joining us. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM. We're also streaming at cklu.ca. You can catch us at facebook.com/Sudbury News and youtube.com/Sudbury News. We did not have a show on Friday. It was a technical glitch caused by yours truly, and I apologize for that. I did not do that on purpose, nor would I ever. But anyways, it was my fault. So I have to take the blame, take accountability, and do my part. I talk a lot about accountability. So hey, if I do something wrong, I admit it. I'm sorry. And I'll try to do better in the future. So thanks for being with us, everyone. It's going to be a great show. There's lots to talk about because we didn't have a show on Friday. The weekend happened. And then, today there's just more stuff to talk about. A couple of us have joined so far online. I'll give a chance for others to join as well. We'll come back with some morning salutations. But let's just dive into the weather and get into it and get the show on the road. We'll be back right after this. All right, and your Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. It's currently 11 degrees. It's mainly clear today. We can expect mainly cloudy, however, and the high will be 21. So I guess some clouds will be rolling in. UV index will be 7 or high. Tonight, clearing and the low of 10. Tuesday, sunny, high of 23, and 7 is your high. And long range, a bit of your 6-day forecast. Tomorrow should be sunny, high of 23, as we said. Wednesday, though, 40% chance of showers, high of 22. 60% chance of showers on Thursday, high of 23. 40% chance of showers on Friday, high of 24. Saturday and Sunday, both 25 and both a mix of sun and cloud. Looking good so far. A little bit of rain in midweek. This is an old satellite view from last night. It's the earliest that we have, though, the most recent. As you know, in Sudbury, we had some thunder showers yesterday, a lot of rain, and that's what it's showing here, about 9:30 last night while it was raining. And it's right now, a lot of the clearing that you're seeing right over Wawa there, it's probably what we have right now, and then we got the clouds moving in that in this depiction are over Thunder Bay coming through this afternoon. So they are saying it's going to be mostly cloudy, and we'll have to just take their word for it. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it wouldn't be the first time a weather prediction was indeed not the case. It was right. So anyways, that's your Sudbury weather. We'll be back with some good morning salutations, the stories of the day, hopefully a bit of a deep dive as usual, and your comments and much, much more right after this. Okay, and welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. And should be a good show, so stay with us today. Lots to talk about. Good morning, Monique. Thanks for being with us from Sudbury. Good morning, Sudbury. And Belinda, good morning. I wonder what your positive statement is for today's success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Wow. Very good. Quote about resilience and persistence and sticking in there. David, good morning. Stay safe. Stay safe. And you're still in Extendicare York. I wonder if they're giving you any indication when you might be coming out of there. And again, all the best in your recovery. And we're all rooting for you to make a quick and safe recovery. Thanks, David, for the update. Good morning, Judy. Thanks for being with us this Monday. Denise, good morning from Espanola, sunny Espanola today. Blessing the day all. I don't see chemtrails. I'm very happy. Yeah, because it's very sunny in Espanola currently. And a different Denise. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Again, I might have to get some reading glasses. I know my brother's been critiquing me as he's watching the show and should be joining us at some point on the show as well. So look forward to him and his commentary, helping us get through the news. It was indeed himself who started this all off, or at least encouraged me back in 2017 to get my butt in gear and get on the radio and get the show started, because there's some trepidation when you're thinking of doing something in your mind and you think it's a good thing and you want to start it. It's another thing to actually put it in practice, and he was really instrumental in helping that all get off the ground. So it would be great to now have him on this rendition of the show, not just sports, but news, and talking about current events, issues locally and abroad. So the views and opinions expressed on this show, just a bit of a disclaimer, are those of the show, myself, the host, the people commenting, which I do my best to read. And then if I can't read them, I put them up on the screen. But the comments made by people commenting are they're their words and take responsibility for their own words. And also any co-hosts or guests I have on will also take responsibility for their own words. And so they don't necessarily reflect that of Laurentian University, CKLU, any of the staff, faculty belonging to both of these organizations, Laurentian or CKLU. They are that of this show and those participating on this show alone. And so with that, good morning, Shane. Thanks for being with us. Look forward to chatting with you tomorrow. So many great things to come as we try and make this show better and better, and a better discussion for everybody to take part in, and try and unpack and make sense of not only our local, the things going on locally, but also in our world, because sometimes things get complicated and people have a hard time understanding, and maybe together we can all make light of things and make more sense of stuff. So let's go through the stories shared on Facebook, on our Facebook page. Sioux councillor wants more police or security presence downtown in their city. What do you think about Sudbury? Should we be thinking of doing the same thing in Sudbury? I know it's controversial, and I know there's different people who feel police, it's kind of antagonistic to have more police around. A lot of other people feel police do a great job and can keep our community safer. And I think it's probably a mixture of the two, depending on the officer themselves and maybe the culture of the police in any particular town or city. And so I know downtown is an issue in Sudbury, and many, many people have an opinion about it. A lot of people feel it's gone south, gone downhill quickly, and something needs to be done with all of the issues, including homelessness, the opioid crisis, and so on, and crime. And, just the idea of people also, it's not wrong to be poor. It's not wrong to beg, but there's a lot of people also panhandling and things downtown, mainly downtown. So it's a downtown issue, all the things that go along with the downtown culture that seems to be deteriorating over the years, right? So we had tried, we are tired of the blocking on other news media. If we can't be adults and entertain the thought we suck as adults. Interesting, yeah. Now that's the thing. Over time, we'll be getting into this a little later in the show. The idea of censorship on the internet. Canada's just come out with Bill C-11, Bill C-18. The reason they put those bills forward was, I believe, a Trojan horse, and on the Trojan horse it says Canadian content, and the reason why they're doing it is to encourage Canadian content. But I think inside the Trojan horse is just a way to quiet any other dissenting voices saying anything other than what the government would want them to say, and all the evidence leads to that, and we'll have some insight into that later on some of the facts and experts agreeing on that statement. So much money spent on climate change. Imagine how much they could do, or how much they can accomplish if they took that money and assisted the homeless. I guess there's no money to be made off of that. No, there definitely is no money to be made off homelessness, for sure. Well, I guess in terms of opioids, you could, if someone who's experiencing homelessness would choose to do opioids, well, apparently they're paid for by your tax dollars, and so they can get as much as they want. So there is money to be made there, and money is being made there. Good morning, Claire. Thanks for being with us this morning. Hope you're having a great Monday. It's kind of sunny so far, so far so good here in the North Shore and in Sudbury. Expect to see big changes. How you get your local news is exactly what we're talking about. That's the next story right on deck here. Sorry, Espanola, the people are so concerned about a dog park, they couldn't care about people around them. They couldn't care about the people around them in the dog park. So more care about the dog park than the people in the dog park. And I agree, there is kind of a trend, people caring more about things than their fellow people. So this we'll come back to this. We'll circle back and expect to see big changes on how you get your local news. If you want local news, you got to go to the local news website, click on it and save it. So this is from Sudbury.com. We'll come back to that again, try and do a little bit of deep dive into, is the government trying to censor news other than what they sanction or what they deem to be real news, I guess you can say. Government real news, which kind of lends itself to think about other countries in history that have done the same thing. And are we going to go down this road? I guess so. We're going to walk the plank. And but we'll talk about that and talk about what we can expect. So there's a letter into the Sudbury Star from a family member of a long-term care resident. And the headline is Long-Term Care Home Failed Our Mother. Sudbury family alleges, and they filed a lawsuit against Extendicare York. A $3 million lawsuit against Extendicare York for mistreatment of their mother. And so you can read more about that. We shared the story on our Facebook page. I read most of it last night. It just seemed to be a lot of details in there. And I know there's been other cases. We talked about Frank's situation in York Extendicare, Billy's father. Billy's been on the show quite a bit, instrumental in getting Sudbury News Talk off the ground. And many of you were with us on that show, or shows we were talking about. There was some negligence going on there, and he wasn't being watched or whatever, or his bed was in a place where it shouldn't have been, and his arm fell off the bed and rested on the heater, and he suffered many burns, and still was took a long time to recover, and so we talked about that and negligence in Extendicare York, and here's some other things. And I've heard many things about that particular home in general, and it's an older facility that it's definitely, they're in dire need of a new facility. Now, how it's managed, I can't really say, but the actual building itself is very, very old, and I don't even know how it's passing all of the current codes and things like that. But anyways, good morning, Monique. Thanks for being with us. And that's something that many people are seeing is there are problems with our long-term health care. There's problems with our health care in general, but long-term health is specifically, there's many problems there that need to be fixed. So that article is there. I would encourage you to read more about it. And that's from the Sudbury Star. CTV Northern Ontario reporting on the provincial mountain bike races held here in Greater Sudbury on Sunday. The Walden Bike Club hosted provincial mountain bike races in Greater Sudbury in the community of Naughton. They have more on that here. So we'll just check in with their story, and we'll be back right after this.
Today, the Walden Mountain Bike Club hosted provincial mountain bike races. The club and Ontario Cycling worked together to bring the Ontario Cup circuit to the region and say the unique landscape of the area presented a challenging course. CTV's Elena Everson has more.
10-year-old Brody La Rochelle rode 8.2 kilometers, representing the Walden Mountain Bike Club team Wolfpack Racing. He finished 6th in the under 11 division.
I started biking when I was like 3 or 4. I like racing because it's competitive, fast. I just like it.
Sudbury's Stacey Green took home a bronze medal in the sport women's class, riding almost 15 kilometers in just under an hour.
Just started racing in 2019, and I just like racing because it gives you something to train for and push yourself, and it's lots of fun.
It's the first time the Walden Mountain Bike Club has hosted a race on the Ontario Cup circuit since 2013.
The Ontario Cup Series is kind of the feeder program for Team Ontario, and those people hopefully go up to the national program. So it's kind of, this is where the future Olympians start. Like we've had our Olympians, Emily Batty and Pete DeSera and them all race this series, and I actually remember them racing when they were kids. So we have some of our future superstars here today.
173 competitors took part, ranging in age from 8 to 80, with race course distances ranging from 8 to 35 kilometers.
So this is a great venue for the diversity of trails, especially being up here, parts of the Canadian Shield that are unique, that are local to here, that we don't get at all the different venues that we go to throughout the year. So it's a really unique spot, and we're really happy to be here.
Ontario Cycling says the next competition for these mountain bike racers is the Provincial Championships in Milton, Ontario at the end of August. Ellen Everson, CTV News, Lively.
Thanks to CTV News for that story. We much appreciate that. And the local journalism
they say
that
you
they
need
do.
a savings account for any.
And I apologize for that. I was just the clicks didn't happen fast enough there. Okay, so sorry about that. David Graham, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Good to see you on. Hope you're having a great Monday. Belinda says it's always the elderly and the poor that take the hit, and we pay too many taxes, and yet our country is a disaster. Big changes needed to take place. For sure. We'll get in a little bit into that too with Pierre Poilievre's visit to Greater Sudbury, the Radisson Hotel last Thursday. We didn't have the show on Friday to cover that basically, so we'll do our best to cover that today, time permitting. And speaking of politics, our calls were on deaf ears. Northern Ontario MPs brace for work with one less seat in Northern Ontario. Having an MP office in almost every corner of every 10 blocks in the city is different than having an office hundreds of kilometers away in a rural area. They're speaking of in densely populated areas. People have MPs all over the place. They said every 10 blocks you have an MP's office and can deal with situations, whereas in Northern Ontario, we're going to have one less seat now going forward. And so we'll have more on that as time progresses. That's from cbc.ca. There's a new volunteer-run project that's ensuring Sudbury's homeless have access to hot meals. Food is getting to the right people. That is something that we are more concerned about. Again, from CBC, Sudbury, the program operates every night from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. and for the past 17 months. Sudbury's Sikh Temple has served hot meals to everyone who shows up to their center on Regent Street. The free meal, affectionately referred to by organizers as free kitchen or langar in Punjabi, is served in the temple's community halls starting at 7:30 now. They are extending their generosity beyond their grounds of worship to help people across the city of Sudbury and the people that need it the most. The temple has collaborated with the Go Give Project, a local outreach program, to distribute free hot meals to vulnerable community members around the city. And the volunteers with the Go Give's nighttime outreach team collect up to 70 packaged meals from the temple in addition to other non-perishable foods, and then distribute them to those in need in greater city of Sudbury. So that's definitely needed, and thanks to the Sikh Temple and the Go Give Project for distributing those meals. Way to kind of find a need and fill it for our city. We wish we didn't have homeless. People experiencing homelessness. We really need to be looking at solutions for that. In the meantime, it's really good to make sure that people are being fed and have the necessities of life: food, clothing, shelter, things like that. And experiencing homelessness, obviously, you're not experiencing one of the necessities, and that's proper shelter. You might have limited shelter, but you need good shelter. And we're looking at that, apparently. Many people, different levels of government, people in the city, looking at the housing situation, and hopefully we'll get there soon. Got a bit of a flack for sharing this particular story. Anyways, it is what it is. I saw it, and I thought I would share it, but it's not Sudbury-centric, right? So there's a farm growing the haskap, the perfect berry for northern climate. The haskap is a fruit that looks similar to a blueberry and is being grown at a farm in New Liskeard. Now, some of the comments here, Ghislaine, who's been on the show quite a bit and commenting, says, firstly, they do grow them around Sudbury also. This should be a Sudbury News story about Sudbury growers growing it, and that's exactly why I wanted to talk about it. There are people in Sudbury growing this, and it's Leisure Farms. One person, Carol, says Leisure Farms grows them, the haskap, and other growers as well. So you can get the haskap from local farmers right here, and that's why I shared that story, just to make the point that we do have them locally as well. And thanks to those commenting, shedding light on it, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. That's why the story was shared, so that way people can further comment on it, discuss it, and the main point being we grow them locally here too. And it's made for our climate, and I read somewhere it was a superfood of some kind, similar to the blueberry. A lot of vitamins in these haskap berries. Former Sudburian turns to van life amid the housing costs, amid high housing costs. Once I got past the mental game, I got to feeling quite proud of my small environment, says the woman who now lives in Barrie. This story from Sudbury.com. I have some friends who live in a van. Not necessarily a van down by the river, but they live in a van. And they love it. They think it's great. And they do quite well. And it has its ups and downs. As long as you're able to manage the downs, there's many ups to it. cost being one, saving costs of living. You have to get used to living in a van, but it's it's unique and it's not for everyone. But I'm intrigued myself. I think there's a part of me who definitely wouldn't mind living in a van. Love the mobility, just pick up and go, and you got everything you need right there. Someone down Lee Valley Road in Espanola was selling the Hascap. Those bushes for $60, $50. My neighbor bought 2, and then she took the berries off, and they taste pretty good. So bought the bushes themselves for $50. Interesting. Yeah, so I should look into that, because if they do grow well in our climate, I'd be able to grow them myself as well. Locally grown food, it's a step in the right direction for sure. Thanks for sharing that, Belinda and Denise. Moving forward, we talked about this on the last show. The Kingsway asphalt is the problem, not his process, contractor alleges. So remember there's this new kind of technology to recycle the asphalt all in one shot. Like this machine goes along the road. It mulches up the asphalt. It then heats it up, adds some new stuff to it, puts it down, and then packs it down all in one shot, saving a lot of money to the city. Well, the city came along and said, well, we want some quality control here. We're going to take a sample of your asphalt. And so you're going to have to be on hold for 4 weeks while we assess the quality of the asphalt, which was pretty much the quality would have been whoever the city contracted to do the job in the first place, because they're just recycling the asphalt. So not sure why they're doing quality control now. They should have done it with the previous contractor. But it is Sudbury, so this is what we do here. Historically, things like this. And so this contractor is saying, hey, look, the asphalt isn't our problem. And we're just recycling the darn stuff, for crying out loud. So if you had a problem with it, why didn't you just go back to who put the asphalt down in the first place? So after the city removed them from the site of a partially completed hot-in-place asphalt recycling project on the Kingsway, the contractor behind the effort has affirmed their commitment to completing their work and an eagerness to fight the city if they are denied. Well, of course, they got the contract. These companies, that machinery is not cheap. Paying the labor is not cheap. Traveling's not cheap. They put that in their schedule. They put other contracts off and say, we're not going to be dealing with those. We got this one in Sudbury to do. And then Sudbury says, well, you're going to have to hold off for 4 weeks. Well, that puts their whole planning. Well, they don't run businesses here in Sudbury. They don't really understand that. They're bureaucrats. They get paid no matter what they do. And they say, hey, let's take a sample. We don't know the reason behind that. It'd be really great to find out the actual reason why they all of a sudden had to do quality control. Something that we don't mind them doing. They should have been doing this all along. They need to follow the sun when doing the van life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to keep in the warmer climates for sure. So Miles says exactly why recycle inferior asphalt as it was laid down by a company that was fined for it. Well, there you go. Conflict of interest, maybe with a relative who owns the business. Nothing would surprise me. That's Belinda. So Stephen says, I believe that that stretch would have been first laid by the province as a major provincial federal highway. It was Highway 17. Not sure. We'd have to look into that then. Was it done by the city? Was it done by the province? Either way, I think the idea of quality control is great. If that's something we're going to start adopting, let's do that from here on in. Let's just not cherry pick a quality control here and there. The quality control from the city was that it is black. Now with 80% savings, they are doing a lab test. Yeah, exactly. My point, exactly. Thanks, Dave. So I guess more to be reported on that as that story kind of unfolds. I'd love to have somebody with some knowledge of that on the show to explain to us what exactly happened there. Here's something, too, that we're seeing a lot more of. 2 more crashes on northern highways on Friday. Crashes on 2 northern Ontario roads Friday morning have resulted in closures on highways 144 near Sudbury and 11 near Smooth Rock Falls. This is shared by Northern Ontario CTV News. And you see the picture there. I'll just make it a little bit bigger so we can see that. And we see this more and more and more and more. And I do have a contact, a source, if you will, from someone in the industry that says they believe 70%, and they would know this, they believe that 70% of the people on our roads driving those big trucks did not go through the proper channels, the proper steps of training to get their licenses. Many just had to pay. Many were just quickly fast-tracked. And we're seeing the results of this now. Again, I'm just making a connection to what she said to what we're seeing. That 70% of the industry is just fast-tracking, or just people are just paying the fees for the courses and getting rubber stamped. So this is definitely something. This is putting not only the drivers of the trucks in danger, endangering them, but anyone else who are on the roads at the same time. And let's face it, Northern Ontario roads, for the most trained of drivers, can be very treacherous, let alone someone who's not trained at all or not trained sufficiently. This something's got to be done with that. A lot of people are going to lose their lives, and so, and at the least, the inconvenience of road closures, and people, traveling have to wait so long just to get to where they're going because there's a transport taking up the whole road, and then they have to investigate it and whatever, and it takes a long time to get the transport off the road. So yeah, so 70%. Pierre Poilievre made a stop in Sudbury on Thursday, and basically brought his Axe the Tax, basically talking about axing the tax, the carbon tax that the Trudeau government has put in. Like it or not, we're paying for our carbon footprint, right? And there's many economists out there and even climate experts who say that may not necessarily be the right way to go. It's controversial. There are people who say paying more taxes can help climate change. And then there's people who say, how is taxing people actually leading to fighting climate change, right? So that's one of the things Pierre Poilievre was talking about, amongst others. So CTV covered that, and we'll just be back with their coverage. We'll be back after their coverage after this.
The federal Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, continued his Axe the Tax tour today, stopping in Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. In the Soo, Poilievre arrived to a big ovation from supporters gathered at the machine shop. In addition to tax reform, the Conservative leader also spoke on a variety of other topics, including how local industry would benefit under his energy policies, as well as plans to support the skilled trades. And in Sudbury, the official opposition leader spoke to hundreds in a packed ballroom inside the Radisson Hotel in Sudbury last night. He touched on crime, security, and his plan to sue Big Pharma, like in the United States, and to use revenues for those struggling with addiction. Poilievre had this to say about mining in the north.
Government stands in the way of mining today. It takes up to 25 years to get a mining permit. So here we import all these minerals from other countries that we have right beneath our feet. We have the best miners, the best businesses, the best geologists who could help us responsibly mine these minerals and enrich communities, fight poverty, but we leave it in the ground under Justin Trudeau.
And in the final day of his tour, Poilievre addressed the media this morning at William Day Transport in the greater Sudbury community of Azilda.
What are people in Sudbury getting for this Trudeau NDP government. They've got 100% increase in rent, 100% increase in mortgage payments, 100% increase in violent murders. And we've seen food prices rise by almost 25%. That is what Trudeau and the NDP have delivered for Sudbury.
And Poilievre will be in North Bay later this evening.
And again, so he was already here in Sudbury, and that was on Thursday. That report was the night that he was here, and he then went to North Bay the following day. After that, he on the campaign trail. I don't know. Does that mean that we can expect an election sooner than later? Inquiring minds want to know. Belinda says that she heard Trudeau called IKEA. Apparently, he needs a new cabinet. Where's the thing here? Oh, no, that's the wrong thing. Sorry about that. Got to get the right one here. Yeah. Oh, that's the wrong one too. So just looking for the drum thing. That's the wrong one. And probably get it here. Yeah, finally. It was the first one. I should have pressed the first one. Okay, let's try this again. I heard Trudeau called IKEA. Apparently, he needs a new cabinet. There. So just had to do a redo there. Sorry about that. Now to more serious local news. We'll just get Dave's. He's very triggered by Pierre Poilievre, so we'll get his comment up on the screen there. Speaking of being triggered, the Liberal government is triggered by media in general that doesn't say what they want them to say. And so here we have Bill C-11 and Bill C-18 that Sudbury.com talking about expect to see big changes in how you get your local news, right? Okay, I'm not sure. There you go. For many Northerners who used to be finding their news stories on various social media pages, it's going to be like the local news has disappeared. In response to Canada's new Online News Act, the news will disappear, in a sense, from those social media pages. When you want to read about things going on in Sudbury, you'll have to go to your favorite news source. It's not hard. Go to the address bar in your internet browser, type in the name of the news, whether it's CTV or it's Sudbury Star or it's Sudbury.news or it's Sudbury.com or it's CBC.ca, and then you have to save the page. And you have to keep going to the website. You won't be able to share any of the news. You'll just be able to read it yourself. You'll have to call someone on the phone and say, you know what I heard? You know what I just read? I read this. And that's how the new social media will have to go around. Some people see this simply as eliminating the middleman who is talking about news content from the newspapers, digital newsrooms, and broadcasters, and then distributing it from their own platforms. It's not like Facebook had any paid reporters or photographers out there. That never happened. The new law means people in Canada will no longer view or share news on Facebook and Instagram, including news content posted by news outlets. In addition, people in Canada will no longer see links or content from any news outlet pages or accounts. Meta's review from Team Facebook identifies news outlets being on legislative definitions. So they define what news outlets are. News outlets include undertakings whose primary purpose is to produce news content in any format, including an audio or visual format that reports on, investigates, or in this case of our show, explains current issues or events of public interest. So they got everything covered. They're going to stop everything other than their government-sanctioned news that they can tell you it's safe to consume because they're worried about your safety. You can't consume news other than what comes directly from the government or to news sources that are sanctioned by the government and paid mainly by the government to report the news, right? So there you go. You can learn more about it from Canada's Online News Act. Well, instead of you having to go there, Aaron Gunn did a little bit of digging on that. So Shane says, chilly this morning. Guess the carbon tax isn't working. Or it is working. Yes, it is working. It's cooling off for sure. Miles, where are you here? In the past 40 years, I've never been an NDP, there's never been an NDP leader who's passed more socialist bills than Pierre Trudeau has, or than Justin Trudeau has. Pierre, his father, is rolling over in his grave. Okay, so many comments coming here. I'll get them up on the screen for those watching. For those listening on the radio, you can catch the show afterwards by going to facebook.com/Sudbury News. I think maybe it's eventually going to be off. I don't know. Maybe won't be able to do that too much more. You definitely won't be able to share it. I know that. So we'll have to see. And time will tell. But for now, Aaron Gunn's done a little deep dive into the idea of this censoring the internet in Canada, and where it's come from and why it's here. What does it want from us? Why are we censoring the internet? Here you go.
Yeah, it's astounding that this is coming from someone ostensibly on the left. It's an incredibly illiberal, incredibly authoritarian move to attempt to criminalize speech.
You know, it's almost a separate conversation about what is the correct word, but the idea that you would criminalize one side of that debate does seem, you know, to have all the markings of totalitarianism.
But under the guise of being friendly, under the guise of care, under the guise of protecting against harm, the danger that people might do.
In the name of compassion, censorship and anti-free speech legislation have continued to gather steam, as activists have advanced a new idea, a new concept that now equates words with literal violence.
I feel like a lot of these things are stemming from an original, very bad and dangerous kind of idea, which is this words are violence.
Yes.
Because if you accept that premise, then everything else does kind of make sense.
Exactly. Yeah, especially on campuses, this is increasingly the message, is that words are violence and that you are a victim of words. Now, let's be clear, words can hurt, but they're not the same as violence. Now, to be fair, free speech is not absolute. There are carve-outs, but these are well-established things like libel, incitement to violence. You cannot do those things. Those are well-established in law and have been for decades.
We all agree, if somebody says, let's kill or imprison this group and that group, there are criminal provisions in the code that deal with that. The real goal of those who are behind hate speech is not that. The goal is to prevent people from truly expressing their views about subject which some people think you shouldn't express your views. For example, David Suzuki saying that people who are climate deniers, that is people who don't agree that the end of the world is coming, that these people should be put in jail.
But jail time for speech in Canada? Is that possible? What protections do we really have? We don't have the First Amendment, but we do have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
The whole point of the Charter is to defend the expression of ideas that are unpopular, that are considered to be wrong or false or untrue or hurtful or offensive or hateful. That's the whole point, is to protect minority expression.
Yeah, I mean, I remember somebody told me that communist China, like if you wholeheartedly agree with what the government's doing, you can kind of say whatever you want.
Majorities don't really need constitutional protections because they can throw their weight around. The whole purpose of protecting free speech is to protect minority views which the majority regards as wrong or false.
Thanks to the Charter, successfully prosecuting a Canadian for what they say or think is a very difficult thing to do. But if instead of silencing Canadians by throwing them in jail, what if there was another way to marginalize opinions the government found harmful or simply didn't like?
The phenomenon of disinformation poses a unique and accelerated and quantum threat to Canadian democracy.
There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation you may be reading online that's adding to your worries.
And this contributes to the heightened public mistrust and the rise of harmful disinformation in our society.
We are seeing a rise of hatred, a rise of intolerance, fed in some places by misinformation, disinformation, and hatred in social media. And finally, today I can announce that we're investing $5.5 million to combat disinformation. because we know disinformation, often generated abroad, can be a real threat to our elections, and it's a threat that the federal government cannot combat alone.
Since the proliferation of the internet, the amount of information and opinions available to Canadians has increased exponentially, and so too have the calls by some to regulate what you can say and what you can see while online. Up until now, most of that effort has been directed at pressuring social media companies to block or throttle certain opinions or viewpoints the government deemed either misinformation or dangerous speech, including stories that are now believed to be plausibly true. But for some in Canada's current government, those efforts, in their view, didn't go far enough.
This afternoon, I introduced Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act. This is the first of a few pieces of legislation that are part of my mandate as Minister of Canadian Heritage.
On February 2nd, 2022, Minister of Heritage Pablo Rodriguez introduced Bill C-11, one of Justin Trudeau's most controversial pieces of legislation.
Now, one of the issues that has come up recently from a legislative perspective pertaining to free speech has been Bill C-11.
Yes.
What is Bill C-11, and what are your thoughts on the piece of legislation?
Yeah, so this is a bill that's essentially going to empower a regulatory agency from the government to decide what you can see on YouTube. Now, it's not going to specifically, prohibit you from looking at things, but it's going to fiddle around with your preferences.
While criticized by opponents as a backdoor to total government control of the internet, proponents maintain its true purpose is to simply promote Canadian content, which makes it somewhat awkward that many of Canada's most prominent YouTube stars oppose the legislation completely.
Hello friends, my name is JJ. Hello friends, my name is JJ.
Hello friends, my name is JJ McCullough and I am a professional YouTuber from New Westminster, BC.
Bill C-11 is basically the federal government's attempt to bring the internet under the jurisdiction of the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission.
The Canadian YouTuber community is right to worry that the continued success of their channels could soon be dependent on their ability to obtain government endorsement.
It is an understatement to say that this legislation has been contentious. The government and the bureaucrats who wrote the bill continue to wrongly treat the internet as a form of broadcasting.
Margaret Atwood has said that this bill represents creeping totalitarianism. It gives the power to a woke agency, the CRTC, named by Liberals, to manipulate social media algorithms in order to shut down voices it does not want people to hear.
One of Canada's loudest and most persistent critics of C-11 has been Conservative opposition leader Pierre Poilievre. I met up with Mr. Poilievre to ask him why he opposed the legislation and what he believes C-11 was really all about.
Well, it gives the CRTC control over social media algorithms to promote and demote content based on what it arbitrarily considers to be Canadian content. They've never been able to define what Canadian content is, and even though that is the supposed purpose of the bill.
Is this kind of influencing what people think by influencing what people hear?
You basically limit the freedom of choice in order to steer the public towards consumption habits that the government thinks are better for them. The Canadian people, who cannot be trusted to make the right sort of media consumption habits on their own, we're going to steer them towards consuming more good, patriotic, nationalistic programming. And I think the government has always been pretty explicit that it is their goal to sort of depress the bad speech and elevate the good speech, sort of government-approved speech. So there's really no good outcome to this.
So it's not just a bill anymore. It received royal assent. It is now the law. My biggest concern is that it has the power to regulate user-generated content.
People who use Canadian YouTube, going forward, they're just going to have to assume that this whole system has been rigged in some fashion to serve Ottawa's understanding of what is in the patriotic greater interest.
By far, the most ominous of C-11's sweeping changes are the new powers entrusted to the CRTC to regulate user-generated content, meaning any content uploaded by any Canadian. This includes the power to manipulate what's known as a post-discoverability, or where and if it appears in a user's home or search results.
One of the things it can do is it can order Twitter, YouTube, Facebook to alter the discoverability of media. So now Trudeau can choose what pops up when you search news. Search Justin Trudeau, search budget, search carbon tax. But now Trudeau can compel companies to hide media he doesn't like and boost media he likes. It's right in there.
So, if the Trudeau government now has the power to elevate and, by extension, repress certain content, who has the most to gain and who has the most to lose?
It's not going to lift up your content. It's not going to lift up my content. It's going to lift up the content of traditional large media corporations who have teams of lawyers who can jump through all the bureaucratic loopholes. They're the ones who will benefit from this.
The CMPA supports the passage of Bill C-11.
We support Bill C-11 and ask that it be adopted rapidly.
To some extent, it is a zero-sum game, right? Who scrolls to page 10 of YouTube? The stuff that's on page 1 is the stuff that's going to get seen by viewers. And if these media corporations can get the government to put their thumb on the scale of that algorithm and get their content on the front page, it will be at the expense of new and emerging content creators.
Like if this all becomes bent to serve the interests of a certain kind of clique of media producers, then that cannot help but sort of depress the discoverability of people like myself or other independent content creators. You know, and I think that there is not an insignificant faction of sort of people within this government that would think that people like me or like you, who sort of see the world in perhaps a slightly different way, are not just people with a different perspective, but are like actively bad people or wrong people or ignorant people or people that are spreading misinformation.
Yeah, so you can kind of see where that's going. And it's here. We're not, before, you had people beating the drum or, sounding the alarm, and people are saying, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. The government would never do that. They can't. They can't do that. They can only do that in communist countries. That'll never happen in Canada. Oh no, we got the Charter of Rights and all these things, and we're a democratic country. You can never just censor all media other than government-sanctioned media, as they do, let's say China or Russia or any other communist dictatorship or totalitarian regime-run government. That would never happen in Canada. No, it wouldn't happen. But it has, and it is happening now. And as we just read the story from Sudbury.com saying it's happened. You won't be able to get the news here anymore. And so with that, sorry, but that's it. That's all. We had a story here that was talking about. It was from CNN, and I'm not sure. I might have X'd it by accident, but it was CNN reporting that there was a minister from. No, here it is, right here. So it's Bill C-11, Bill C-18 right now, but we've heard that Trudeau really admires the government in China, and because they're able to get things done quickly. They don't have to go through all these democratic processes and things, and so. Recently in China, and this is, so narrate now, it's Bill C-11, Bill C-18, shutting them down. But what happens when someone in his cabinet goes against what he says in the future, right? So this is just recently in China. This is from CNN.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry's response to all of this, to him going mysteriously missing, is they have no information. Just put this in context for us, Will. How unusual is this?
Well, this is China, Erica. This is a nebulous black box, especially when it comes to their law and order, their investigative process. And when you're talking about senior officials in the Communist Party, well, the secrecy is even more intense, which is why there has been such rampant speculation in China about where Qin Gang might actually be. I mean, he's the second highest diplomat in the entire country after Wang Yi. He spent his whole career working as a diplomat. He was promoted to foreign minister last year. He worked as Chinese ambassador to the U.S., so a lot of people in Washington know him well. He was a trusted aide of Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and he even met with Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, during his visit to Beijing in June. But it was on June 25th that he vanished, and ever since then, the netizens have just been really wondering what could have happened. Did he run afoul with Xi Jinping? Did something else happen that caused him to essentially now have been disappeared like so many other Chinese officials we've seen this happen to in the past?
And so if I was to say, wow, this is where our country is heading, or at least we're showing signs of that type of thing, if you start censoring, I saw this way back when they canceled Don Cherry. And it's, oh yeah, Don Cherry, he's old, he's racist, he's saying all these things. No, but when you cancel somebody because of what they say, eventually it's coming for you. Like it starts there, and now it's Bill C-11, Bill C-18, shut down any media other than government-sanctioned media. And here's a politician who said something he shouldn't have to the person in power. Now no one even knows where the guy is. No one knows the guy is. And then, Dave, you're asking where I get these clips, so I just got the last clip from CNN. So it's the most trusted name in news. So how could you go wrong with that, right? So anyways, that's your show for the day. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow, God willing, on Tuesday. Stay safe, as David would say, and stay tuned now for Earshot Daily. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure to share, as I guess you can still share for the next couple days. Other than that, won't be able to share this anymore. Take care, and we'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Ciao, everyone.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.